The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's the day after the big election.
It was a landslide.
A landslide. About almost 80% of the people voted against the incumbent.
Well, it was 60. Actually, I think it was 63% of the
and 16 point something or other, almost 17%. So
voted for Erica Scott.
So it's nearly 80%.
Yeah, nearly 80%.
Yeah, nearly 80% of the people voted. But then again, we're afraid. We fear the unknown. There's corruption throughout the FBI, the prosecutors. Everybody's against the mayor, and it's amazing how.
Remember, we were intimidated.
And we're intimidated. Everybody, it's amazing how important he is, because we didn't have that much widespread corruption when the IRS got Al Capone.
Right.
And he killed half of Chicago.
Well, you know, this is getting to be a little ridiculous. I mean,
you think?
He could have been a little more magnanimous, a little more humble, to turn around and just say, I thank my supporters, and he did say that. He did thank his supporters that came out, and obviously I have a lot of work to do for the November election, and left it at that. But instead he had to say, the voters are scared, the voters are intimidated. You know, you just made yourself look like a fool.
And not only that, a good way to antagonize the voters, you just call them chickens, and,
right.
And you're afraid and you're intimidated. You know, be like me, totally delusionary.
Yeah.
So he didn't even get 3,000 votes. So
yeah, let's look at the vote totals.
Let's look at the numbers, and let's compare his numbers to the recall, if we can.
Well, actually, they're pretty close to what the recall showed, which is interesting. Coogan got 8,273 votes. Not bad. Correia got 2,777 votes. That's almost a 4-to-1 margin.
Yep.
Almost a 4-to-1 margin. Erica Scott-Pacheco, she missed by 606 votes. She got 2,171 votes. That speaks volumes. Now, if you were Jasiel Correia at this point in time, if you say you get all of Erica Scott-Pacheco's votes, you still don't have enough to win.
That's right. You would still need about
another
65% of every voter if the turnout virtually doubled.
Right.
And by the way, the turnout wasn't great, but it was great for Fall River.
Yes, it was.
30% turnout when we normally get, 12, 11. Once in a while, I think one time we got 18% in a primary election. So listen, the people, so let's do a little, we're looking at those numbers, and you look at him, he actually lost some votes from the recall. And I know that yesterday he was talking about more people are coming out, and you know, obviously it's my opinion, and obviously you're going to have yours, and you're going to tell me. I don't see him. Number one, he's going to get virtually none of Erica Scott-Pacheco's votes,
right,
because obviously they didn't want to vote for him. Otherwise, they would have.
Right.
Secondly, Coogan's going to get some, because a lot of people were voting for her to try to knock him out in the primary. We discussed that on the last show.
Right.
I don't agree with that strategy. But if anybody's going to get anything, they're going to stay home. They're not going to vote. They're going to abstain. Or they'll go there and vote for city council and school committee. Now let's look at this. In the final election, what is the voter pool? Who is going to come out in the final election that didn't come out in a primary? People who are going to vote for city council and school committee. So let's look at that. Who introduced him yesterday at Scotty's Pub? the vice chair of the school committee.
Right.
The school committee was going to oust Jasiel Correia. The school committee is solidly behind Paul Coogan for the most part. There may be one. So you think the people are coming out to vote for school committeemen who they know are opposed to Jasiel Correia as mayor? Do you really believe they're going to vote for Jasiel Correia? And when we look at the council, most of the people are on the council. The people are coming out to vote for Sean Kadim and Cliff Ponte and
Pamela
Liberté-LeBeau, Steve Long. They're not going to vote for him. They know who they're behind. And the major vote getter, who used to be considered maybe aligned, Joe Camara, is now no longer with him.
Right. And that's only recent. And the fact that Joe Camara's brother has just switched sides again and is now going to testify against the mayor on this, people in Fall River may start looking at this saying, hey, wait a minute. You know, your business at ABC has done very well because of your connection to the city. Whether it's deliberate or not, I mean, there's no question about it. You know, if you're going to buy products, if you're developing a project here in Fall River, you're going to want to buy with the people who run the city. And whether it's ethically right or not is another question. But
well, you know, what voters do is normally emotional, and it shouldn't be, but it is. But as you said, people that support Joe Camara now know that he voted for the ouster of him. And also, I'm sure that they're not happy that a relative is facing 6 years in jail thanks to his, and they could, and we can't get in their head, but you would assume that they'd say, well, this guy led this guy down a path to jail.
And remember, Hill Camara is still receiving a city paycheck even though he's not working. He's on administrative leave with pay.
Maybe not anymore after he finds out he's testifying against them.
Well, I mean, that was September 4th. But what's really interesting, because I wanted to bring this up, during the recall, the percentages are about the same. But during the recall, Correia earned 4,808 votes. This time he got 2,777. That's almost 2,000 vote loss in a few months' time.
Exactly.
In a few months' time. That speaks volumes right there. That tells you right there, hey, wait a minute.
Oh, absolutely. And it kind of reinforces what we talked about, that we saw a lot of Jasiel Correia signs coming down in the South End.
Yes.
And I believe that Paul Coogan won every precinct.
Yeah. And now the mayor's saying that over the next 6 weeks leading to the election and over the next several debates, he will be door knocking and shaking voters' hands. That's what Erica Scott-Pacheco did for her entire campaign. And guess what? She got 2,000 votes more than she got last time.
Yep.
Because during the recall, she got 700-something votes. So that tells you how badly people don't want Jasiel back in office.
Absolutely. And it also kind of reinforces the fact that if she would have done that for the city council, she probably would have got in.
Oh, yeah. I agree there. And that's another thing we're going to...
that she should have run for city council.
And that's another thing we're going to have to look at. Because there are several city council candidates right now, they're just candidates, they're not serving on the city council yet, who have supported Jasiel Correia through his entire process. So what's going to happen when the election comes? What if people start saying, we're not going to vote for you because you've been supporting a crook? And you did everything the crook said, because one of these people serves on a board. And everything the mayor wanted, the mayor got. So what's going to happen there?
True, but you know what that reinforces, CJ? The fact that we tell these candidates they better get their butts down here and introduce themselves to the public. Because I can see people thinking exactly that way. But then again, how do they pick one of the new candidates when they know virtually nothing about them?
Right, right.
And that's the problem. I don't see any of these new candidates out and about. And maybe now after the primary, maybe we're going to be seeing them come out,
Well, I've spoken
full bore and full speed ahead. Maybe we'll see them, and I hope so, because we want to know. I want to know.
I've spoken
And
to
I
two.
know you want to know
Yep.
as much as you can because I know there are 2 empty seats.
Yep. And I've spoken to 2 candidates. I spoke to Trot Lee and I
Yep.
spoke to Chris Peckham. Chris Peckham has a valid reason for not being able to come. He works for the Department of Corrections. He's a correctional officer. He works 5:30 in the morning to 1:30 in the afternoon, Monday through Friday. It's kind of hard for him to get here. Trot Lee also works like 8 to 4, so he's unable to come in during our broadcast time, which is 11 a.m. And both of them said, if you can make it a different time, I'll be more than happy to come and do it. But then how many times do I got to make a different time for a different candidate?
Yeah, and you're right. But the thing is, I also don't see them out and about.
Right. Well, I do see Chris Peckham out and about. He's made. I've been to events before my leg issue, where he was there, and they weren't fundraisers. They were just city events, things that happened in the city to support good causes and whatnot. So Chris Peckham is definitely out and about.
Well, that is a definition that satisfies out and about.
Right.
But you can't convince me in the city of Fall River that the majority of people who get votes, if you've got high name recognition, you may get into the city council. Joe Camara, let's face it, when Joe Camara first got into the city council, he got in with Paul Hart. And the reason they got in was because they played Durfee basketball.
Right.
And everybody knew their name. It was kind of like Cheers. So these people are not household names. Trot Lee's run a couple times, okay, and he was, and so he might have some name recognition. But the reality is, as you said with Erica Scott-Pacheco, the people that get you elected, especially the city council race are at the bottom, sometimes just a few votes separates getting in and not getting in, with the bottom 2 and 4 spots separated by 50 votes or less. The people who go to the polls aren't the people that are at the events, whether
Right.
they're the people sitting in their houses and because they came home from work and they're tired. You got to do what Erica did, and that's knock on doors. You got to knock on doors, and you got to meet people. You got to go into the neighborhoods. You got to introduce yourself. You've got to come up, if you can't get on this show, because people in all the neighborhoods watch this one, but the fact is you'll get some of your message out, but not everybody watches us either. The fact is the best way to do it is knock on doors. And you can't convince me otherwise. That's how many years ago Chuck Sylvia became a state rep when he knocked out John Long. John Long had been a state representative for nearly 30 years, and he'd been doing nothing for the last 29 and a half. But Chuck Sylvia knocked on every single door in the district. He got elected. Then he got unseated by Ed Lambert. But he went from a clothing salesman at one of the men's shops downtown to a nearly millionaire with investments. So he was suspect for some shady deals, and he got knocked out. But the reality is, how did he get elected? He went out and met the people. He went out and introduced himself, one-on-one. And like I said, this is only September, so there's plenty of time. But the weather gets kind of bad now. It's cool. It's already cool today. It's very cool today. It gets dark early. Weekends, sometimes people don't want to inconvenience people. They're not going to, they're not going to be happy with you if you interrupt them when they're watching a Patriots game or something like that. There are a lot of political considerations, and the reality is that, but they got to get out there, and because the people of Fall River at least need to put 2 new councilors in, minimum. I believe we need to put more in, but there are 2 vacant seats. So what are you going to do? Are you going to take, that the Jasiel, as you said, even though Jasiel only got 2777?
Yep.
Easy number to remember. as opposed to over 4,000 when he had a split vote. But 27, if most of those people vote for the Jasiel backers to put them in the council, they've got a leg up to get in. So if
Yeah,
you
because you
want to
really
get
only
some,
need that.
if you want to get some new blood, let's hope the new blood gets out there and does their work for you to be able to know the candidates. Because frankly, some of these people I couldn't identify in a lineup.
Yeah, I understand that. And, you know, again, what's very interesting is I noticed yesterday on TV when the TV cameras were going through Scotty's Pub, which is where Paul Coogan had his party, his, congratulatory party there. A lot of the money men in Fall River that have backed Jasiel consistently, a lot of the realtors, a lot of the developers were all at Paul Coogan's time. So that tells you a lot when you see them.
Oh, absolutely.
When I start seeing real estate brokers that have told me to my face that I'm a bleep bleep for not supporting Jasiel and for calling Jasiel out for the stuff that he hasn't done, but they're over there supporting Paul, guess what? Looks like you got a little egg on your face.
And believe me, they don't ever have egg because they don't care. It's whatever's going to benefit them because they're businessmen. So they're going to back the winner. And there's going to be a lot of other rats deserting that Jasiel ship, because when they see basically an absolute thrashing that they saw in this election, even the foot soldiers are going to be leaving.
Yeah.
You know, the guys that were hugging him after the recall, they'll be running over to Paul Coogan and saying, "Oh, you know, I was with you all the way. You know, I had to kind of show my face because I was afraid that I'd get fired or something." You know, because we know these political animals. We've been dealing with them for years.
Yep.
Yeah, they're gonna shift gears, jump off the ship, and swim over to the ship that's still floating.
Well, what was very interesting was, you know, now that you mentioned that, I was watching Jasiel's time, and some of the same people were there.
Yep.
All, you know, that are always there. A couple were missing that I'm like, oh, I wonder where they are. But there were a couple of people who were appointed to the board. Again, one of the gentlemen, you know, I'm not going to name these people, but one of the gentlemen turned around once when I was in the city council chamber and my name was mentioned. He turned around and says, "I don't even want to see that bleep, bleep, bleep," you know? And I thought that was funny because he's still supporting the mayor and he serves on a board. Well, guess what? Maybe when the new mayor comes in, maybe you won't be serving on any boards anymore. That's
Well,
always a possibility.
Hopefully, when we get a new mayor, we can begin to put only Fall River people on the board, and then have the people on the board, their actions be reviewed. Because
Personally, I think what needs to happen, if, and I got to say if, because, you know, I know it's going to happen, but if Paul Coogan takes office, I think the first thing he needs to do is he needs to replace the city administrator and the city finance manager, the treasurer, whatever they want, the CFO. Those need to be replaced. Okay? I have no faith in them because of the things that they've said, and they never have the answers when they're asked. And they hope people forget about it. You know, using the old keep your head down and people will forget about it. Also, I think all the boards, all of them, need to be cleaned out. Every single one of them. And all new people need to be put in.
absolutely.
Because some of those people have been on the boards for so long, it's unbelievable. And they don't change it. And I think that's a big problem. The other thing I think that needs to happen is they need to really make sure they're familiar with what their job is and what the law requires them to do. Because a lot of them have no clue what the law requires them to do. And they just do what they want.
Conspicuously absent from LePage's last night.
Oh, yes, they were.
Some people in the political realm and in the labor realm.
Yes.
So you saw, and as I said, the rats desert the ship, especially when it's going down like the Titanic.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And so let's as we said, let's look at this. He feels that if he knocks on doors and a higher turnout, and I've already gone over. I think it's absolute delusion to think you can do this. I mean, it would be, to me, the only way he can win the next election is if they rig it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean,
don't put it past him.
And you're right, but you know what disturbs me, CJ, is, as you said, his speech. He basically doesn't give the people of Fall River credit for saying, "Hey, we've had enough of you."
Right.
You know, maybe the people spoke, as you said. He got almost, you know, he got over 4,000 votes. He got nearly 40% less votes.
Yep.
Than he did it in a recall, in a plurality election.
Right.
So, you know, and what disturbs me is the attitude, the absolute, you know, arrogance of saying that everybody else is wrong, everybody's corrupt. The people of Fall River. Now, I was upset when the lieutenant governor called us stupid because we re-elected him in the recall, and we pointed out that we didn't really elect them. 65% of the people voted against them.
Exactly.
And more than 65% of the people voted against them in this election. So let's, you know, as you said, I would have thought a lot more of him if he would have said, well, you know, I know the people are not happy. This is a reflection. I thank the people who support me. I still contend my innocence. I'm going to work like, I'm going to work. Don't say, you know, you people are scared. You people are intimidated. You don't even give us credit for the ability to say, look, we're fed up with this. You should have stepped down. There are a lot of people who didn't even think he was guilty, but understood that facing those kind of charges, he was doing damage to the city of Fall River. Give the people of this city a little bit of credit. It's bad enough when people who from outside this community think that we're all absolute morons because of him. You know, then he gets on and gives a speech that basically says, you people don't have any courage, because if you have courage, you're going to vote for me. And it's crazy.
Well, you know.
And then he calls the people who were some of his closest allies. Now they're criminals.
Yep.
They're all lying criminals. You know, the federal prosecutors, the federal judges, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Everybody is corrupt. They had a guy and I normally don't listen to the radio, but I listen to it again now because I'm listening to it just to listen to the calls. And this guy called up and basically started talking about Whitey Bulger. Oh, look at the FBI at Whitey Bulger. They were informing him. No, they weren't. He was an FBI informant. They weren't informing Whitey Bulger. He did have a corrupt FBI agent who he was paying for information about them looking into his criminal activities. But he was an FBI informant. That's why they murdered him in jail and cut his tongue out.
Right, because he was a rat.
Because he was a rat. That's right. So let's make that clear. We have this guy with this big giant conspiracy theory, and he went all the way back to Lee Harvey Oswald. So I guess if they gave him enough time on the radio, we would have got back to the sinking of the Lusitania.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is it's in today's paper. It was actually published yesterday. The fact that Fall River does itself in. When you look at social media, we are the biggest bunch of idiots you can see. You got Boston newspapers saying that we're idiots. You've got so many people. Now, what would I do if I was under 24 indictments, just came in second, not by a small margin, but by a huge margin in the primary election, even though I made the general election? Wouldn't I take the message from the people that says, get out of town?
And there you go, thinking logically.
I know. That's my fault. You know, I'm thinking logically again.
And as you said, in the secondary thing to this, okay, you lost to a guy with a fairly, recognizable name, and you lost badly.
Right.
But you had a third contestant in this race who is realistically a virtual unknown in this community. She's gotten a little bit of visibility because of the recall election. But let's face it, she is not a political name. She has no real name recognition in this city.
And that was her whole position for running.
And but in this city is a very parochial city. If they don't know your name, this place is like Cheers. Everybody's got to know your name in order for you to get elected. When was the last time you saw a virtual unknown get elected to virtually anything?
I know.
You can't. Pat Casey got elected because she was a dog groomer and involved in Stop Obnoxious Smells.
Yep.
Paul Hart and Joe Camara got elected because they were Durfee basketball players.
And Paul Hart's running again this year.
Al Herron got elected because he was a ball player. In that election, it was split a whole bunch of races, state rep. The reality is that in this community, it's a medium-sized city. It used to be a large, on the high end of the medium cities. Now we've lost population. But the reality is that this city is a lot like a small town. Everybody kind of knows everybody, and if you don't know the person, somebody knows them. It's like Paul Coogan. Everybody knows him. Some people don't support him. But everybody knows everybody. And for somebody like Erica Scott-Pacheco to do as well as she did, it says a lot about how much work she put in, and you have to congratulate her on that. And it also says a lot about how much the people are upset with Jasiel. So, and some of those people might have voted for her hoping they were going to knock Jasiel right out of the... But as you said, a person without a convoluted, delusional perspective of reality would kind of take the hint. You would kind of take the hint to leave office and work on your defense when the governor, oh, by the way, they indicted the governor too. They said the governor's got a lot more skeletons in his closet. So they use the two wrongs don't make a right argument. There are people who've done a lot worse. That's true. So I guess by that logic, if I commit 5 murders and I can find somebody that committed 10, you have to let me off. But it's absurd. But you would think after the governor, a congressional delegation, other politicians, the city council said it's time to leave, you're damaging the city, you would leave. But he didn't. Then you get 11 more indictments. He still doesn't leave. He gets thrown out of, he gets voted out by the council under the charter. He still refused to leave. Now he gets totally annihilated. And he tells it, he rationalizes it by saying the people in Fall River are afraid. They fear the unknown. It's just the opposite, Jasiel. They fear the known. That's it. Because you're the known quantity. So I don't know. Every day is a new day, and we look at some of the pleas that these people are taking. It's in there by Joe Good. And I guess on Friday we'll be talking about these pleas because there'll be more information.
Yeah, and I actually have them the PACER files on them, and I'll tell you now, there's no way people are going to plead guilty to these things unless there was something actually there. And I believe tomorrow another person is going to court on this case regarding Jasiel, so it should be interesting to see.
Well, we look forward to seeing everybody on Friday because this is getting better than a soap opera.
Exactly. Hey, have a great day, everyone. We'll see you Friday.